Today marks White Ribbon Day and the International Day to End Violence Against Women. But in Victoria, reports of domestic violence went up a quarter in the last year, and that figure is still rising. Violence in the home makes up more than 40% of all Victorian murders, at least half of all child protection cases, and is a big factor in homelessness. The new Police Chief Commissioner, Ken Lay, wants a mainstream advertising campaign on the issue. But the Baillieu government won't commit to funding that and is yet to develop a long-term plan.
A caring girl, wanting to do good for people, wanted, like I guess all young girls, to grow up, meet a partner, have children, a normal family life.
But Carol Robinson's daughter, Sherry, didn't get those things. After leaving an abusive relationship and obtaining a lifelong intervention order, Sherry Robinson was murdered by her former partner last year.
Many times he caused her torment by smashing her houses, burning the kids' toys, stayed in the back of their car and you know, she never told me that. Didn't want me to worry.
Sherry Robinson was stabbed 25 times in front of one of her 3 sons. Her killer didn't want his former partner to take their young son overseas. He was sentenced last week to a minimum 17 years jail.
To die because she wanted to take her young son for a holiday. A holiday. I see women down the street with their daughters shopping. I can't do that with mine. And to lose her life for this is just unbelievable.
Women and children are more likely to be assaulted in their own homes than on the street. That is simply not tolerable.
Victoria's new Police Chief Commissioner heartened many when he raised domestic violence as one of his top priorities. Have you always felt strongly about the issue?
I have. I understand it's an enormous cost for the community. It's estimated at almost $3.4 billion a year, the costs associated with family violence, which is equivalent to road trauma. We know it makes up about 30% of our assault offences, 30% of property damages, and also 43% of murders.
I understand it's quite difficult at the moment.
In August, police statistics showed reports of domestic violence had risen about 25% in the last year. Since then, that figure has grown.
We would expect to see probably another 3 or 4% growth over the next 12 months.
And you say that's a good thing because it shows more people are reporting?
We're not certain where the actual incidents are increasing, but we're certainly seeing far more reporting.
As part of his planned focus on domestic abuse, Ken Lay is calling for a TAC-style advertising campaign.
There's 3,000 police. No warning, no escape.
To use the road safety advertising campaign model, it would be quite expensive now. If we were going to go down that track, we'd need to source funds, but that's certainly something I'd be keen to be thinking about into the future.
And have you approached government about it?
No, I haven't at this stage. It's the first week in the job.
We think that's a brilliant idea. That was exactly what we would like to see. Not the only part of preventing strategies that needs to be implemented, but a great start.
But the Baillieu government's promised tough on law and order approach largely focuses on street violence. Its solutions include protective services officers who'll eventually guard every train station in Melbourne. The Chief Commissioner's flagged that he'd like to see an advertising campaign on domestic violence. Do you think it's a good idea?
I think the principle of applying attention to the ever-present problem of family violence is in itself a very good idea.
So in principle you'd be examining the idea of funding that sort of advertising
Well, I'm not
campaign.
committing to anything.
Victoria's peak body for family violence services is seeing a dramatic rise in reporting.
Some of our services are reporting as much as a 70% increase in demand for services. So we're actually finding that demand is outstripping capacity. Our services are really grappling to keep up.
I've checked with the Minister her unavailable dates.
Yeah. The increased demand is coming from all classes, age groups and ethnicities. To counteract it, domestic violence groups want greater education and public discussion on abuse and its links to sexism. Just this week, radio broadcaster Carl Sandilands attacked a female journalist for criticising his new television show.
Some fat slag on Telegraph website, news.com.au, has already branded it a disaster. What a fat bitter thing you are, you deputy editor of an online thing. That's enough. You got a nothing job anyway.
Sexism can be seen as an outdated word. The way in which women are portrayed in the media, challenging that can be seen as a little old-fashioned, a little passé, but it's actually the core issue that we need to get back to.
I think every day you told yourself that things would get better, because it wasn't like that all the time. It would go in stages and you'd have your really, really good times. It wasn't all bad.
Michelle is one of thousands of Victorian women to use support services for help to leave an abusive relationship.
I was even locked out of the house one night with my children inside and couldn't get in. And this physical strength basically overcome me, and I kept slamming and slamming the door. And it wasn't until the next day that I couldn't move my arm and my arm was covered in bruises that I realised how much I'd been trying to slam the door just to get to my kids. It's not just about being hit. I think it's a lot of mental that messes you up as well.
After a number of attempts, Michelle safely left her husband. She wants other women to know help is out there.
Don't try and hide it. You're not alone.
I swear! This week, MPs of all persuasions took an oath against violence at State Parliament. But those at the front line of domestic abuse want something more concrete from the Baillieu government.
There's actually no policy at the moment. The government has committed to developing one, and we're really keen to work in partnership with government to see that strategy work.
And how urgently needed is one?
It's critical.
Any long-term plan is years away. The government's waiting for the results of pilot programs linking up services in 2 local councils.
This is about a way of informing us as to the way forward, and hopefully there will be a solution that will be developed from that.
Can you put a time frame on that?
Well, as I said, it's a 2-year pilot project. We're spending over $2 million in that alone, and indeed hopefully that will inform the development of a much more comprehensive plan that might be rolled out across the state.
Do you think it's more urgent than a 2-year plan?
Well, obviously it's an urgent matter.
Today, Carol Robinson and her grandson Sebastian marched in memory of Sherry Robinson.
It's the last thing I can do for my daughter. I want to speak up for her. I want to speak up for other women. Don't put up with it. You could end up a statistic like my daughter.